old woman with white hair, Rebecca Nurse, enters and without a word manages to calm down the hysterical Betty. An even older man, Giles Corey, enters and wants to know if it's true what he's heard, that Betty can fly. Mrs. Putnam asks Rebecca to go to her daughter Ruth and try waking her. Goody Nurse cites her experience with 26 grandchildren and 11 children and suggests that Betty and Ruth are simply in a silly phase, nothing more than the mischief of children. John Proctor joins Rebecca in advising calm. In their eyes, the community should look to God, turn to prayer, and even blame themselves before they should require Reverend Hale and embark on some search for the devil. Thomas Putnam wonders on what authority Proctor advises. After all, Putnam reveals, the farmer rarely attends church services. Proctor says he is absent because the Reverend hardly mentions God anymore. The charge leaves the Reverend outraged, but Parris admits that Proctor is joined by more than half the town in being unmindful. Proctor accuses the Reverend of running the church more like a business and says Parris was the first minister he'd ever known to demand the deed to his house. Parris accuses Proctor of having his own followers in the church and talks again of the faction set to ruin him. Putnam agrees there's a subversive party out to undermine not just the Reverend, but all authority. Proctor says he must find this party and join it. Putnam then accuses Proctor of poaching lumber from lands that were willed to him. Proctor and Giles Corey tell Putnam his grandfather had a habit of willing away land that wasn't his. There were very few in Salem who would have questioned the character of Rebecca Nurse. The 72-year-old woman was held in very high esteem for her charity, her kindness, and her good sense. Like Proctor, Rebecca Nurse is a voice of concern, advising calm and hoping that all the talk of witchcraft will be silenced by reason. She is probably the most pious character in the story, and therefore it is no surprise that the likes of Mrs. Putnam resent Rebecca's moral superiority. Of course, no one is perfect, not even Goody Nurse, who is perhaps to be chided for boasting of so many children and grandchildren in the presence of Goody Putnam, who lost 7 babies and frets over her one surviving child. Parris is resentful of Proctor, whom he accuses of leading the party set against him. When Proctor says he must find the party and join it, he's quite clearly making a joke, even enlisting Giles Corey in the humor. But tensions are to the point that even words said in jest could find their way into court. Where church and state are one, the governing body is known as a theocracy. And in a theocracy like Puritan New England, there was no such thing as privacy. Putnam upbraids Proctor for his failure to attend church services and for his willingness to plow on Sundays. Proctor may resent that his behavior is being monitored, but he cannot be surprised. Today, Putnam would be known as a meddling tattletale, but in 1692, it was not only his right to check up on his neighbors, it was his duty. In the Puritan belief, one person's moral failure put the entire community at risk. So a culture of snooping and suspicion arose, whereby people accused others of wrongdoing in an attempt to bolster their own good name. Putnam's recommendation to Parris earlier in the act defined the mindset of many in Salem: declare evil before someone else can charge you with it.